I've had a lot of thought about what I wanted my first YouTube video to be about. I knew I definitely wanted to discuss big ideas, politics, religion, philosophy, these sorts of things, but I never knew where to start. So I figured, start at the beginning. The beginning of what? The beginning of thought. As a Westerner, for me that means returning to those immortalized figures in the history of our intellectual tradition, the Greeks. These people, either by historical accident or by providence, began a 2,500-year tradition of thought, informing literature, art, the natural sciences, politics, and every other facet of academia. One could say that they even invented academia in a certain form. Because of this, the Greeks, for any traditional-minded thinker, always seem to be in the background of any discussion of anything of substance, as well as many things of no substance. The Greeks laid a foundation of what was to become a truly Western culture. Their ideas were spread, taken up, studied, commented upon, and critiqued by everyone who got their hands on their texts. Why then do I say that they failed? Within Greek thought there's conflict. A question needs to be answered. This is the question that has racked the minds of philosophers for centuries. It goes by many names, but the most common of them is the question of the one and the many. The history of this question goes back to the Greek philosophers known as the pre-Socratics, that is, those whose works predate Socrates. These men observed a complex world of varying particular things that, amazingly, was entirely intelligible. Whales, wheat fields, and wives seem so foreign to each other, but in a very puzzling way they all make sense. The pre-Socratics posited that, for this to be the case, there must be something at the base of it all, some foundation for all existence. They called this the arche. The arche is something that all things find their origin in, that directs the existence of all things, and that, when broken down, all things are in themselves. The pursuit of this is part of what is now called metaphysics. A number of pre-Socratics had ideas of what this arche was. Thales famously proclaimed, "Everything is water." Pythagoras believed that number was what everything could be broken down to. Democritus believed that all that existed was atoms and the void. I will focus on two pre-Socratics, since their ideas are 1. The most sophisticated, and 2. The contradictions between the two best characterize the conflict in answering the question of the one and the many. These men are Parmenides and Heraclitus. Parmenides is known for a simple yet elegant argument with world-shattering consequences if true. He begins, "We observe A changing into B. A exists. B exists. The change also exists. Therefore, since all of this exists, the supposed change is something illusory." This leads the hard Parmenidean to conclude that, in fact, nothing changes and everything is the same. This is a characterization of the one, a static, unified existence, characterized by eternal necessity. Consider the consequences. Your aging, an illusion. The pleasures and pains of your life, illusions. Your loved ones, illusions. There is only the one. It is an extreme idea, and for many appealing. We see something like this echoed in Eastern philosophies as well. Heraclitus stands at the opposite end of the spectrum on the question of the one and the many. He is famous for writing, "You can never step into the same river twice." For Heraclitus, the world was characterized by constant flux. Change was everywhere. In fact, everything at all times seemed to be changing constantly. This is concerning for the thinker as is Parmenides' conclusion. Imagine it. There is nothing that bears necessity, nothing remains constant. Heraclitus' world is that of shifting sands. There's only the many, a formless mass of particularity. Neither of these seem to square up with our actual experience of the world, which contains many constants and many changes, but the Greeks have yet to show us their best. Plato's dialogues also attempt to tackle the conflict inherited by him from Parmenides and Heraclitus. There is much historical debate as to whether or not Plato's work are a direct representation of his teacher Socrates' thought, or if they're his own thoughts and he is using the voice of his teacher to give himself legitimacy. To me, this question doesn't matter that much. Plato wrote the dialogues, so I'll simply assume they are his ideas. Plato looks at the problem of the one and the many and has an innovative answer. Both certainly exist. His explanation is elegant, and I'll present it with an example. We observe many horses. Some are black, or brown, or white. Some are large or small, male or female, old or young. This is the experience of particularity, the many. However, we can say that all these horses, despite their variety, all carry a certain hoarseness about them. We know instinctively that all of these horses are, well, horses. Why? Well, they all have hoarseness, or they participate in the form of horse. The word form deserves some unpacking. A form is of something is the universal idea of that thing. That is, all particular instances of a thing carry one singular unchanging principle that is the foundation of their being. A form, therefore, must be immaterial and eternal. It is the one. So, question answered, right? We experience both particularity and universality this way. Wrong. Aristotle, a student of Plato and a later intellectual rival, pointed to some deep flaws in this. Wouldn't contradictory things, such as straightness and curvedness, both have forms? What does the form contribute to the thing? Is it even necessary to posit their existence? And most importantly, since the thing is experienced immediately, shouldn't the thing have priority? Aristotle did not deny the form's existence, but he recognized that forms must be grounded in the material world. In a sense, Aristotle is the Heraclitus to Plato's Parmenides. Plato goes whole hog into the forms and their unchanging nature, while Aristotle leaves heavily into particular things. Aristotle finds his solution in the term substance. An etymology of the word substance reveals that it means something that stands under. The substance is foundational, and its accidents change. Accidents are things that are not necessary for a substance, but are observed. For example, let us say you get a haircut. You have not changed substantially, but accidentally. The substance stands under the accidents and is unchanged. However, Aristotle admits that you do not experience substance, but you know it through accidents. He hasn't found the thing to answer the question of the one and the many. He has simply shifted focus away from Plato's eternal forms. The arche of all things remains unknown. This is the failure of the Greek philosophers. They, like us, experienced a world of the one and the many, but they could not make sense of it, even though the world made sense. Plato's forms didn't hold up to scrutiny, and his academic successors never produced much except esoteric explanations of the hierarchy, organization, and procession of the forms. Aristotle's metaphysics, while more systematic, actually concludes with more questions than answers. These two represent the best pagan philosophy had to provide in the field of metaphysics. And I think it is telling that the pagan society in the West continued to turn to esoteric mystery cults, worshipping fickle gods that acted more like men. The solution to this question, as the culture saw it, was simply to rely on secret revelations from these gods via oracles or certain rituals. It is telling that Aristotle and Plato are both very against these kind of gods. Plato in the Euthyphro calls out a glaring conflict in the practice of worshipping these gods. Aristotle posits some sort of divine unmoved mover, a creator god who is very unlike any god on the Greek pantheon, but they couldn't get all the way. My argument is that the paganism of the Greeks held them back in answering the question of the one and the many. What the Greeks needed was the conception of some kind of arche, some origin of all things, something divine, unmoving, uncreated, constant, and utterly simple, that simultaneously was involved in and truly a part of the world, situated in time and space with all the particularities that entails. And truly, I will leave it at that. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe, like the video, and comment. Also, you may follow me on Twitter at the link in the description. Thank you.